Right. So welcome to Water Storytelling for Earth Science Week, where we will be exploring a toolkit for sharing stories through stop motion animation. And yes, we invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to hear where people are coming from. And just one note on the chat, I might repeat myself a few times, but just make sure it's addressed to everyone. Sometimes the default chat function just sends your messages to panelists, which we would love to see your messages, but we'd love everyone to share. But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat and we'll get started. So quick facilitator introductions. My name is Claire Ratcliffe Adams. I'm an education associate and the PI for the We Are Water project, and I work at the Space Science Institute in Boulder, Colorado. But who you're really going to be hearing from today are Brigitte and Anna Marie from the University of Colorado Boulder, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
So hi, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you today about the stop motion animation workshop. My name is Brigitte. I am the program manager for We Are Water, and I am based out of the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences, or CERES, as we call it for short, at the University of Colorado Boulder.
Let me unmute myself. I'm Anna Marie Schecker. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for the We Are Water project, also out of Boulder.
All right, and just to give a shout out in the chat, we have a couple of our other project team members. Beatrice Chavez will be dropping a link bank, as she just did just now, in the chat. So all of the resources we'll be covering today are in that link bank. So you don't need to take notes or remember anything. We have it all recorded for you right there for you to print or share with colleagues for doing stop motion animation. We also have Dylan Connolly and Brooks Mitchell in the chat. They also work at the Space Science Institute and are project team members on the We Are Water project. All right, so I have a quick icebreaker for you all today. And I want to give credit where credit is due. This is an icebreaker developed by Dylan, our colleague, just to lighten up the mood. So I'd love for you to answer in the chat, just how are you feeling today? So these are 4 different weather phenomenon from the Four Corners region of the United States, which is what this project is all about. But yeah, how are you feeling today? Are you a dry thunderstorm, full of energy and flashy? Are you a drought, waiting for relief, in need of maybe some Jergens, need to put some hand lotion on? Are you feeling like a flash flood? Are you fast acting, enriching to your environment? Or are you a winter storm, cool, preparing for the future? So go ahead and reflect on that for a little bit. I'd love to hear how you're doing. You can share that in the chat. I think today, let's see. I think I'm feeling like a winter storm, which for me is unusual because I'm not a big fan of winter, to be honest, but I am pretty ready for the changing of the seasons and I'm looking forward to the future. All right, so we're hearing some responses in the chat here. We've got a drought, maybe a flash flood. That's good. Feeling like you're enriching to your environment, even though sometimes it can be a little destructive. Dylan is very much feeling the winter stormy today, hoping for a lot of cool future stuff. Awesome. And Greta is feeling the drought today and not just because you're in California. Awesome. Yeah, so I think, one of the things that we like to do with the We Are Water project, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes, is really connect our learning experiences to place. So whether you're coming from the Four Corners region and joining us today on this webinar or coming from other places, I see from Kansas or California, I think it's really great to connect with the place that you're in. And water is something that is vital for every place you are, no matter where you are in the country. We're hearing some more stuff. Brooks is a flash flood. All right, fast acting. And Delise is a winter storm preparing for the future. Awesome. Well, thank you all for engaging in that little icebreaker. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the We Are Water project. This is the project that gave way to a lot of cool learning resources that we're going to be talking to you about today, including the stop motion animation storytelling. So We Are Water is all about connecting communities, sharing stories, and sharing place, similar to what we just did with that icebreaker. So this is a traveling exhibit that features 4 different exhibit pieces that is currently traveling in public and tribal libraries in the Four Corners region. If you're joining us from outside the Four Corners region, that is where the states of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico come together. It's a really unique place where water is critical and scarce. So we've been in a drought for a really long time, and water can be kind of hard to come by. We are hoping to reach communities and libraries that are serving Indigenous, Latinx, and rural communities. And again, just reiterating the big idea behind this project is to connect communities through conversations and explorations about water. And the stop motion animation is one way that we bring stories to life. This is a multicultural exhibit. It has headers in Navajo, Spanish, and English. The rest of the text is in English, but there are QR codes on each exhibit panel that you can scan to get the audio and text in Navajo and Spanish. And there are also, in this giant Connect 4 piece right here, the tokens are in Ute as well as Navajo, English, and Spanish. So we've been working with a lot of partners to develop a multicultural and multi-generational exhibit experience accompanied with learning resources that we'll share with you today. Also, we're really excited because not only do we work with libraries in the Four Corners who are receiving the exhibit, but we also want to share the learning resources we've developed and tie it to national and international events where you can celebrate water. One of those events is coming up right around the corner. October 9th through 15th is Earth Science Week. So you may have attended our previous Earth Science Week webinar that we did a few months ago, and hopefully some of you have plans for this week. But if not, the resources we'll be sharing with you today can be done during Earth Science Week or at any other time where you just want to talk about water and share stories about your unique place. So a little background on Earth Science Week. This was started in 1998 by the American Geosciences Institute, and it has become an international event. The purpose behind this week is for everyone to gain a better understanding and appreciation for earth sciences, which water fits in really well. Another big goal for Earth Science Week is to encourage stewardship of the earth. So water conservation and how do we care for this earth and how do we share resources when they are scarce to come by amongst all kinds of diverse communities. That really fits into the We Are Water project. The 2022 theme, if you want to do anything for it in a couple of weeks, is Earth Science for a Sustainable World. And if you go to earthscienceweek.org, you can find all kinds of ways to engage your communities through contests, events near you. There's hundreds of activities, hands-on science activities you can look through, and so much more. So check out earthscienceweek.org to get your community involved. All right, so now I'm going to pass it over to Brigitte to talk about stop motion animation.
All right. So the focus of today's webinar is going to be on how you can facilitate a stop motion animation workshop at your library. But before I jump into specifics, I want to share a video that was created by the creator of this workshop. Her name is Dr. Emily Fairfax. She's a professor at California State University Channel Islands. And this was the first stop motion video she ever created. And so I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to have a follow-up question that folks can answer in the chat. So Claire, go ahead and hit play. All right. So the question I want to pose to everyone here is, what did you learn from this video? And specifically, what did you learn without having to listen to someone talk to you about what you're watching? And I'll give a few minutes for folks to put their answers in the chat. So Greta said that beavers contribute to creating fireproof environments. Joan said beaver dams create wetlands that survive fires. And both of these that Greta and Joan have shared are very similar to what I said when I first saw this video. And while I'm giving others a chance to type, I'll let you in on a little insight on this video. This video Emily created to describe her PhD research, and also it applies to her current research as well. And she created this video because she found she was having a difficult time telling her research story in a really accessible way to non-experts. And so she made the stop motion video and it went viral on social media. And I think last time I checked, it had over like 1.5 million views on Twitter and YouTube combined. And so stop motion is a really powerful way in which you can tell a story about water and how you can connect with people who might not initially find stories interesting just listening to them. They might be more visual learners. So Claire, you can advance to the next slide. So the stop motion animation workshop, again, was created by Emily Fairfax. She was inspired by kind of the really overwhelming response to that video she created. And the goal of this workshop is to create a short 1-minute stop motion animation of a story about water. And the audience for this workshop are, 6 to 8-year-old kids with adult supervision. We've run this with really young kids and have had a lot of success with adult and older sibling support. And then we found that kids ages 9 and up were able to do most of this work independently on their own. The design of the workshop is set up to happen in 2 1 to 1.5 hour sessions. Emily has run it with older students doing the full 3 hours in one go, but younger kids really liked having the 2 separate sessions to work on things with time in between, to think about arts and crafts and things like that. I'll get into the details in a moment. And in terms of materials, what you need for this is very simple, but you do need access to a smartphone or tablet that can download an application. And the application that Emily outlines in her materials is called Stop Motion. It's actually called Stop Motion. And there's a free version and a pro paid version. The pro paid version is $5.99, I believe, last time I checked. And that gives you access to a couple different editing features, including sound additions. But when we ran this workshop, we ran it with the free version of the app, and kids had a lot of fun, and there wasn't a lot of issues using the freely available application. Art supplies for this particular workshop can range to whatever you already have around. We found kids really liked having foam shapes and construction paper, but again, they got very creative depending on what they have, and I'll talk more about that as I jump into the details. So next slide, please, Claire. So all of these materials, the instructor guide, the participant handout, and the material list for this workshop are available online and available in the link bank. And Emily Fairfax, the creator of this workshop, is happy to answer any specific questions you might have about, has she tried this or has she tried this? What has been successful? My contact information is also at the end, and I'm happy to provide insight about our previous iterations of this workshop. So next slide. So the facilitation guide is broken down into a series of different steps. I think in total, it's about 12 or 13 steps with a couple optional at the very end. There's some broad groupings of steps. And the very first part of the workshop that you'll want to focus on with participants is starting with the story. And there are really three main steps in this part of the workshop. The first one is thinking of a story about water. And this requires particularly, we found with younger kids, a lot of encouragement to think beyond just the simple, oh, I like this animal in the ocean, for example. It might involve prompting participants to think about, for example, what's a favorite memory you have about water? Or what does water mean to you and your family? And so this step, oftentimes, if you already have arts and crafts out, kids get a little distracted by the arts and crafts. So I recommend keeping those put away until you get through these first couple steps, especially the part where they're thinking about the story. So in the handout, Emily put an example of a story that she thought about that she wanted to create a stop motion video about. And I won't read it out loud, but it's there, the full story. I think there's 5 or 6 short sentences there that describe kind of this story about the garden, her garden that she wanted to tell. So these stories, often with kids, if you work with kids a lot, they have a lot to say. Their story might be lengthy, but the real goal of a stop motion animation video is narrowing down a story to its simplest parts. And so the second step in this workshop is to take that story that kids are excited to tell and challenge them to narrow it down to one sentence. And this is really difficult, even for adults to do. I have a hard time taking a paragraph and narrowing it down to 10 words, for example. Emily did it here. She narrowed it down to 5 words. But it's really important that you make this a fun challenge to see, how many words can you cut out of the story, but still have the same meaning. Once you get through those first 2 steps, then the arts and crafts starts, and kids get really excited thinking about characters and what they want to draw and what they want to include in their story. So in this step, we encourage participants to think about how they would draw out their story. And so this is like storyboarding. If you've ever worked on films or seen how films are made, it's very similar to that. You encourage students to draw out, 5 or 6 different scenes that will be included in the stop motion video. And this is a lot of fun. This is when the participants are first starting to think about, okay, what imagery do I want in my video? Starting to think about, how am I going to make this part come to life? And this is when you want to start encouraging them to think about main characters versus background imagery. And so Claire, you can advance to the next slide. So it's important that you, before jumping into, pulling out arts and crafts and cutting out characters that participants have drawn in their storyboard, that you encourage participants to think about what are the key elements of the story. So ask them, who or what are the main characters in the story? In this example that Emily created, it's the sun, plants, clouds, and rain. And one thing I want to emphasize here is that whatever the main characters or main parts of the story are going to be the moving parts in the stop motion animation video. And this will become important in the next step. The second question to ask participants is what should be in the background? And these will be the fixed parts. And so in Emily's story, this is the sky, soil, ground. And these, again, it's really fun for students to start thinking about what's going to be moving? How am I going to animate this? And this is kind of when excitement really starts to peak in the workshop on part 1 or day 1, however you decide to lay out the 2 sessions. Next slide. So after participants have a good idea of what their story is, who the main characters are going to be, what's going to be in the background, this is the moment where crafting comes into play. And oftentimes this takes up the biggest chunk of time in the first session. So Emily and I left about 45 minutes in the first session for crafting with the most recent iteration of this workshop. And it worked really well, but some kids even continued crafting after that. So make sure you're budgeting plenty of time for the crafting section. And so for this, you want to provide a wide range of materials. We gave the kids construction paper, felt, pre-cut shapes to kind of make it easier for younger kids who may not have the dexterity to cut things out. Pipe cleaners were the absolute favorite. I think every single story that was created in our most recent workshop, the kids used pipe cleaners to design their main characters. And then of course, markers, pens, pencils, anything that kids can use to create their characters and their background. Now, one thing we found is that kids get really excited to create this beautiful scenery, and then they get a little ahead of themselves and start attaching their main characters to their background. You really want to make sure that you are telling participants to not glue or tape or fix the main characters, which will be the moving part of the animation, to the background. That's very important because we had a couple kids who had to restart their background and restart their characters because they had gotten too excited and glued things that they shouldn't. So just make sure that you're emphasizing that before work gets started here. Next slide. So the next big chunk of time in the workshop is typically how we, in past iterations of the workshop, have started session 2 or day 2 of the workshop. And this is when you jump into the technology. So I'm going to give a really, really brief overview of this. Emily has a much better step-by-step guide in the instructor guide of, what buttons to click, what the different icons mean. And she is extremely happy to help and answer questions about this stop motion animation application. And I'll say, as someone who doesn't use this application a lot, it is very intuitive and easy to use. And most kids picked it up really, really quickly. So as I mentioned before, there are 2 versions of this app, Stop Motion Studio and Stop Motion Studio Pro. They might also show up on Android as just Stop Motion and Stop Motion Pro. The name might be a little different. If you have questions, just reach out. And I put an image here of what it looks like. I have an iPhone, so I pulled up the Stop Motion Studio app on my iPhone, took a picture of it so you can see what the icon looks like. And then the image on the far right is what the application looks like when you open a new video. And so in this particular photo, Emily has taken a series of photos of her notebook, for example. And what happens is every time you want to take a new image in the for the stop motion, you click that camera, it saves that image and it puts it in order with other images. So essentially what this application is doing for you is allowing you to take a photo, put it in order, and then connect all of the images together. And then you can preview it with the play button and export it into a video format. Next slide, please. So we often try to leave, and these steps are more optional at the end. Sometimes the filming and arts and crafts portion takes up the vast majority of the time in the workshop. So oftentimes what we try to do if we have time is to leave a bit at the very end for students to provide feedback to each other. So we had groups pair off and we had, 2 or 3 kids in each group, and they provided feedback on the story. And we asked the question, guess the story. What is this video trying to say? And then we use that feedback to then help kids edit their video. So if someone made a video, for example, about a crab moving along in the ocean, but somebody didn't know that the crab was moving, for example, that feedback would help the kid to go back, revisit, and revise their story to make it something that makes sense, or that it just helps them get a better idea if what they're trying to show with images and no words makes sense or not. And so we had almost every group and kid and family participant in our workshop go back and film the story again. It's also a really great opportunity because it's kind of a little bit of a learning curve using the application the first time. And you may find, oh, I moved my character too far between frames 1 and 2. I want to reshoot that. Or I want to edit how fast I moved a character from point A to point B. So I really encourage you to leave some time for this editing process. And Claire, if you can click play on this example video that Emily made, that would be great. So that was the final video from Emily's original story about the garden not growing until rain happened and gave, the plants water. And that's a really good example of something that can be done in a 3-hour total time period with a workshop. And so I think, Claire, that might be my last slide. So I am going to pass it off to Anna Marie, who's going to talk about ways in which you can get involved with the We Are Water project with your stop motion animation workshop.
Yeah, isn't that fun? That's going to be great. What a great way to talk about water. So, a way for your patrons to get involved, we'd love to see their stories and for them to share with us. So as a little enticement, we are offering this contest. So they can submit a story, that's about a minute long, a stop motion animation story about water. And then they'll be entered to win a $25 gift card and a We Are Water prize pack. So after your workshop, please do mention this contest. That'll be open for quite a while, so there's no rush in terms of their entries, but that'd be a great way to encourage them to write the story, produce the story, and then to submit it for a potential prize. And we also have an oral history contest as well. So again, a story, if they conduct an oral history about water, please let them know that we're having this contest as well. They can submit their story, and again, for a chance to win one of 10 $25 gift cards. And again, this information and how to enter and submit will be in the link bank. The We Are Water project also has a couple other activities for your patrons to be involved in telling their story. This is an activity called Be a Water Historian. And in this activity, participants learn how to conduct an oral history, basically, but they learn how to be a good interviewer, from identifying the person to be interviewed to writing effective interview questions. They'll be able to share recorded stories with people in the community and elsewhere through our We Are Water project. So again, it's kind of what we call a take and make kit. And there's a downloadable PDF available on our We Are Water website. And there's a link also in the link bank.
Great, thank you, Anna Marie. And I just want to point out too that this take and make kit is available in English, Spanish, and Navajo, I believe. So you can download whichever language your community would find useful. One more resource we want to share with you, since we're talking about stories and eliciting people's shared experiences. This is an activity called a walk through time. And so there's multiple ways to do this, but the basic gist is that you are looking at historical photos of areas in your community, and then compare them with contemporary photos of the same areas, and you can really see how the landscape has changed through time. So in the link bank, there is a link to the activity guide that has all kinds of resources for how you can find these photos. And I'm sure as libraries, you have all kinds of resources at your disposal to look through historical photos of your community. But the activity guide also comes with all kinds of discussion prompts, drawing prompts, and ways that people can look at these photos and really discuss what they're seeing and what the impacts are of certain things such as dams or mines or conservation efforts. So there are three main ways that we have tested this activity, and I'm sure there's others that you can think of in your library, but we did develop this in 2020, back when outdoor programs were more safe. So there are instructions for how to create a history walk similar to a story walk, but using photos that you put together, and then you can put discussion prompts or drawing prompts or writing prompts down at the bottom, and patrons can walk through your community and look at these different photos. You can also do a virtual photo gallery if anyone is still doing virtual programs, or even just have it on your website or social media, a picture of the day with a prompt that people can engage it with. And then we've recently tested this with great success, just as a smaller display with only a couple of pictures. This could be set up in your library, in the lobby, or if you're having a big event that people are coming through, people can it's sort of more of a passive program again. So you can display pictures of your community and have some sticky notes that people can respond to. I would say the most successful prompt we had, if you look at this picture on the top right left corner, we had a picture of a local waterway, and we had a really simple prompt. This was meant for younger kids. What are some animals, or draw 3 animals that you think live in this area? And kids went nuts over it. I had kids asking if they could draw extinct animals, and they wanted to tell me all about the dinosaurs they knew from that area in their hometown. So I got really fun, and it's a way, you can really make this a multi-generational activity by having, those drawing prompts about animals, and go all the way up through discussing what impacts a dam has on the community, or a mine, or other things like that, where older patrons might have experience of those things changing, and they can share their memories, their thoughts. So yeah, check out A Walk Through Time. The activity guide is in the link bank. And yeah, we'd love to hear how any of these things go. So our contact information is also listed at the bottom of that link bank. So if you have pictures of how these things turned out, or suggestions for how we could change the activity guides, always feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, and we have another way patrons can participate and submit their work is through this photo contest, the We Are Water photo contest. And again, we're trying to encourage people to showcase water and communities, their relationship with water in their community. So again, the information about the photo contest and how to submit, and the rules are all in the link bank. But we're hoping that through these photographs, they'll highlight how plants, animals, landforms, weather events all shape people's connections to the environment, and show how people interact with and learn from the natural world. So again, another great opportunity for patrons to get out and be creative, and then also show their connection to water.
Yeah, and once again, I just want to reiterate, you do not need to be a We Are Water host library, although I see some of you on the call, so thank you for joining. But if you're not hosting the exhibit, this is still for you. We really want to collect stories from people and how water affects you, how it impacts your community, and the important values that your community shares around water. So please consider joining all of these contests. We'd love to see what's going on in your communities.
Can I just note, Claire, that it says it's open through October 6th, but please disregard that. It'll be open for quite a bit longer. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. All right. So we have another free webinar coming up called World Water Day, Celebrate the Building Block of Life. So World Water Day is another international event that we are rallying behind to try to get communities talking about water, thinking about how they use water, how to conserve water, And this will really be focused on water conservation. So we'll have several more hands-on activities that you can share with your patrons. The webinar is October 27th at 1:00 p.m. Mountain Time. However, World Water Day itself is not till March 22nd. So that gives you plenty of time. Please come check out the resources we have to share, and that way you can start building them into your springtime plans, because I know a lot of you plan very far in advance. So we want to share these resources with you. But yeah, just a quick little background on World Water Day. This was started by the United Nations as a way to raise awareness that there are so many people across the world in almost every single country that do not have access to clean water. That's true of our country, that's true of almost every single country. So this is a way to kind of raise awareness to that, and sort of a call to action for what we can do to make water accessibility more equitable, and really think about our own footprint when it comes to water use. So you can register for this webinar at starnetlibraries.org/development/webinars. We'd love to see you there. And again, all of these webinars are recorded. So even if you can't make it that day, please still register and we can send you the recording later. All right. So here we have Emily Fairfax's contact information. So she's the one who developed the stop motion animation guide. And she is willing to answer any questions or help anyone through creating your own stop motion animation workshop with your patrons. Her contact information is also on the link bank, but reach out to her if you have questions, reach out to us if you have questions, or you want to learn other ways of getting involved with We Are Water. We would love to work with you and connect with you. All right, and I want to give a big thank you to some of our project partnerships, the Southern Ute Indian Tribe Cultural Preservation Department, Navajo Nation educators and elders. They really helped us to design the exhibit and translate all of the text. Our science advisors, our library partners, and library advisors. So this is a big project. It's been going on since 2020, and there's a lot of people and organizations behind it. So I just want to give a shout out to them. That is all we have for you today. So we'll stick around. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And don't forget to click on that link bank that Beatrice put in, so that you have all of the resources, and reach out to us if you have any other questions. Thank you all so much for joining. I'll just stick around for one. Oh, it looks like we do have a question. You mentioned the October 6th deadline for the photo contest isn't updated. Do we have an idea of when the deadline will be? Anna Marie, do you have an idea for how long the photo contest will be going?
I would think through the winter, we'll probably close it, maybe around March.
And Joan asks about how many pictures for a 15-minute stop motion video. Or sorry, 15-second. Thank you for that clarification. I was like, I have probably quite a lot, hundreds. Brigitte, if you're still on, I know Brigitte has to, okay, she said, answered in the chat, probably about 30 photos for a 15-second video. Great question. And thank you, Dilly says, what an interesting and fun idea for teaching. All right, I do have to redact something. So the photo contest, sorry, does actually have a strict deadline. Brigitte just shared with me in the chat, because we are going to be presenting the results at a conference coming up. So October 6th actually is the deadline for the photo contest. I believe, however, it's the stop motion animation contest that will be extended through the winter. Awesome. And yes, when we update the deadline, so the photo contest, I will reiterate, is going to be, the deadline is October 6th. Stop motion animation will go through the winter. We can, so I have all of your emails. I will put all of that in an email and let you all know and send out the updated deadlines for those contests. Thanks. I am glad I got that Delise, beautiful name, and I'm glad that I pronounced it correctly. Awesome. Well, yeah, I know it is a lot to process, so definitely we will be sharing the recording. You can access the recording on the link in the link bank. It will be up in about 24 hours. So process it, check it out, and please, yes, reach out to us if you have questions or want to get involved with We Are Water Project. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.